The House of Lunduke BBS is online. This is a retro, DOS-based, entirely DOS-based BBS that is Telnet accessible, free to use, ready to go 24/7, baby, highlighting a cherry-picked, carefully curated collection of the absolute best of DOS-based BBS games from the early to mid 1990s. I know that's a real specific thing, and a lot of you who weren't really around for that, because I recognize that's, oh my heaven, well over a quarter of a century ago now. This is now your chance to get to experience the true joy of early 90s BBS gaming. It was a fantastic period. You had games like TradeWars and Legend of the Red Dragon. It was absolutely amazing, and now it's all up and running 24/7 for all of you to enjoy. It's free. It's free. There's no strings attached. There's nothing you have to buy or pay for. This is funded entirely by the proceeds of the Lunduke Journal, because gosh darn it, as serious and important as computers and the tech industry is, you gotta have fun with your computers. You gotta have a good time. Computers should be an enjoyable thing. And this is one aspect of computing history that I feel like it's not getting fully enjoyed. It's not getting relived by the future generations as much as it deserves. So let's relive that 1990s DOS BBS gaming. I'm gonna go through a little bit of it with you now, but again, you just telnet over to bbs.lunduke.com and you can connect. However, I should point out, BBSs were beautiful. BBSs had rich, colorful, antsy artwork. And in order to actually enjoy what those looked like, you need to not use just some run-of-the-mill Telnet client. You use some random Telnet client, and you're going to get a screen full of garbage characters, and nothing's going to line up right, and everything's going to be all funky, and you're going to be sad. You're going to be like, this is what BBSing was like. BBSing was dumb, and I hate it. And you're going to hang up and delete your computer entirely. It's just no good. You need to get a Telnet client that works well for BBSing, and there are a number of them. On Linux, Netrunner and SyncTerm work well. If you're on the Apple side of things, MuffinTerm. I can't recommend MuffinTerm enough for you iOS and macOS users. It really does a nice job. If you're on Windows, again, Netrunner and SyncTerm both do well. And the reason you want to use these is it renders everything just right. In fact, some of these have features where you can emulate dial-up modem speeds and ANSI music, which, yes, that was a thing. And you can really relive the experience of using a BBS from the 80s and 90s the way it was meant to be. Now, if you really want to go hardcore, if you really want to go crazy hardcore. Let me see. Do I have a picture of this here? Oh, I do. It's over here. I've got a link there. So first, go to lunduke.com, scroll to the bottom of the page. It says House of Lunduke BBS right there at the bottom. Click that link, and it'll send you over here to a page that tells you all about how to get connected, right? There is an article in there on how to utilize DOSBox. Yes, DOSBox on whatever platform you're on. DOSBox. And combine that with an era-appropriate terminal client, such as Telemate, a terminal client that actually used, back in the old days, a real dial-up modem. It is possible to have DOSBox emulate a modem and basically map a modem command to Telnet. So you can use an old dial-up modem client and connect to the House of Lunduke BBS, and it works great. I've got a whole article detailing exactly how to do it, how to use with DOSBox X in particular, but it works with regular DOSBox out of the gate as well, and it absolutely works, and it's phenomenal, and I highly recommend it as an option. If you really want to get that, I'm actually using DOS to dial up over the internet a DOS BBS server in 2025, right? Just to know you're doing that feels good, right? It's exciting because you're not using some newfangled Android client to connect to a big JavaScript backend JBoss server, blah blah blah. No. DOS client, DOS server. Yeah, baby, in 2025. That's what I'm talking about, man. It's just fun. It's just pure fun. There's a lot of games here. I highly recommend checking a bunch of them out. If you want a simple game to get into that really embodies what early 90s BBS gaming was, check out Legend of the Red Dragon. It's not the most complicated game in the world. It's fairly simple. It's very straightforward. It's not even a full roguelike. It's a real simple hack and slash text-based role-playing game. Very, very straightforward, but it's a lot of fun. And it's a game you can play every day. It's multiplayer, so you can take your couple of turns every day in a couple minutes. And if you get a good Telnet client going on your phone or wherever, you can do it anywhere. You can do it while sitting on the throne, if you know what I mean. I also highly recommend TradeWars and The Pit. The Pit is a great one. It's basically gladiator combat, the game, multiplayer in a DOS ANSI BBS. It's just tons and tons and tons of fun. So all this is up and running. Telnet into bbs.lunduke.com. Again, though, please use a real honest to goodness Telnet client that's good with BBSs. Muffin Term or Sync Term or Netrunner are great. There are plenty of others. Those are just three that I have enough experience with where I can say those look great. Those really have good quality results and can give you that accurate experience, or go nuts and do the whole actually via DOSBox thing. It takes a lot of extra steps, don't get me wrong. Plus, you got to hunt down the terminal client you like. Steps. It takes time, but it's worth it because then you can say you did it. Then you can say you actually dialed up in 2025 a DOS BBS using a DOS client running in DOS. It's just fantastic. So a couple of quick FAQs, just because people are curious and want to know. I've already received a few questions about this, so here's some details. Someone wanted to know what the software of the House of BBS was, and it's real simple. It is DOS. It's DOS stuff, right? So the core BBS software itself is something called Virtual Advanced, which was a DOS-based BBS package from the early to mid 1990s. It was the successor to something called Virtual BBS or VBBS, which was pretty popular. It wasn't like the biggest BBS package in the land, but it was pretty popular. I ran it on a BBS back in the 90s myself, and I liked it. It was a good system. And I chose it for the House of Lunduke specifically because it's so DOSy. It's perfect because it's very DOSy, and there's some good tools that have been built over the years to put a Telnet server on top of it. So what we're running here is literally the same old DOS BBS software, and it thinks it's connecting to modems on a COM port, right? I have 20 nodes configured, right? 20 individual modem lines, and they're all configured to essentially fake modems. They're not actually going to real modems. They're using something called a fossil driver, which is sort of a generic device driver that sits on top of serial communication devices. And they connect to this fossil driver and they think they're connecting to a modem, but they're really not. What they're really connecting to is a generic Telnet device that is getting handed off. A generic Telnet connection is getting handed off from a fairly simple Telnet server over to this DOS-based BBS package. And when you connect to it, for a split second, you're using this modern Telnet server that's not DOS, and a fraction of a second later, you're right into DOS. You're right into this DOS piece of software, and every time you launch one of those DOS games, whether it's, TradeWars or, oh man, TradeWars is the best, or Legend of the Red Dragon or any of them, it's literally handing control of that Telnet connection over to a different piece of DOS software. So it hands it over and says, hey, TradeWars, you've got this connection now, take it and run. It's another DOS software. So when you're using things from within the House of Lunduke BBS, It's just one little bitty DOS piece of software after another. It's absolutely phenomenal. So it's all DOS, top to bottom, and that's just a beautiful thing. I really, really like it that way, and that's purposeful. There are, and I'm gonna just kind of jump ahead in the FAQ here. There are more modern BBS packages out there. Two of them that are really great. One called Mystic BBS and one called Synchronet. And Synchronet and Mystic, I can get them and I can run them on a Raspberry Pi running Linux, and I can do all sorts of stuff with those really impressive pieces of BBS software. And they have great scripting languages built in, support for Python built in, and cool internet connectivity options beyond just being Telnet. They can act as like web servers and all sorts of stuff. They're really cool, but they're not old. Right? They're new and they're modern and they're fancy and they have tons of features, and that is not what I'm going for here. I want this BBS is a shrine. This BBS is a snapshot of some of the best of that 1993 to 1995 era of BBSing and BBS gaming, specifically focused on the DOS side of things, which was kind of the most popular, at least in the United States at that point in time. And that's really what I wanted to focus on, because the moment I move away from that and the moment I start getting fancy about it, well, then it's a different thing. It's a modern take on retro BBSing, and that's cool and that's interesting, and I want more people to do that. But that's not what I want to do here. This is about the history. This is about experiencing what it was like in those years in 1993 for dialing up with your 14.4 modem over to call a BBS, to play your daily couple of rounds of Legend of the Red Dragon. That's what it's all about here. That's what we're doing here. Now, some people have wondered what I mean by nodes. I mentioned a few times that the House of Lunduke BBS is a 20-node system. Well, what the heck is a node? All right, well, so let me scroll up here so I can bring this back up here. So what the heck is a node? So a node is really a phone line and modem combination. So in the old days, when you had a BBS, they weren't connected to the internet, not by and large. They were dialed up via a phone line. So if you called one, you called in through a phone line with a dedicated phone number and dialed into a specific modem connected to a machine. Each phone line and modem pair was a node, right? And each node, because it's a phone line, could only support one person at a time calling in, a node. So if you had a BBS that was a one node BBS, that means that only one person can be online on that BBS at a time. It was very, very limiting, right? Now, that doesn't mean you have a BBS that's a ghost town. You could still have a BBS that has crazy good games and vast and expansive and really engaged message boards and everything. But everyone had to take their turn to log in and dial the system. You'd just get a busy signal if someone else was using it and you tried to call, right? Well, the more nodes you got, the more people can be online at once. And because the House of Lunduke really is, at its core, a retro DOS-based BBS, and it is configured to use fake pretend modems, that means it still has a little bit of a limitation, because every door game that is in use, every piece of DOS software, all the BBS itself has to be configured to utilize each individual node one at a time. So what I settled on was 20 nodes. So 20 people can be online at a time at once in the House of Lunduke BBS, which is really crazy for most BBS. There's very rare instances where we're going to come even close to that number. Most people don't use these dial-up BBSs anymore. They just don't. People just don't do that anymore, right? In the old days, because this BBS used to be up and running many years back, we did have instances where we did have a lot of people online at once, but that very rarely happened where we hit that 20 node maximum. maximum. And 20 node is a nice sweet spot because it's fairly easy for me to maintain and administer, but it's still a whole mega ton of people online at once. So that's what that is. That's what a 20 node BBS is. So there you go. Head on over to lunduke.com. Where's that at here? Head on over to lunduke.com, which is the standard place where you get all the Lunduke Journal shows and links and how to subscribe and how to become a whistleblower and blah, 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 how to contact me. All that stuff is there. And at the very bottom of that page, tucked down there, inconspicuously down at the bottom, it says House of Lunduke BBS. Click that, and it will take you over to the House of Lunduke BBS page with all the information you need on all the different Telnet clients, how to connect. It's free to use. It's not tied in any way to user accounts on any other system. It's just a standalone shrine to old school BBSing. It's just fantastic. Now, many of you may think back in time and go, I think I have an account on that system. I think I've used that once before. Well, if you've used that before 2025, your account is gone. We nuked everything and started over and reset everything up a little bit better, a little bit tighter, a little bit cleaner. You'll notice it's a little faster, a little peppier than it's ever been before, and you'll need to create a new account, but that takes like 2 minutes, and boom, you're good. I want to make two little tiny notes here. When you create a new account, okay, remember your password, because there's no automatic get your password reset option. That just doesn't exist. Remember your password. Write it down if you want. Put it on a sticky note. I don't care. Because if you have to contact me to reset your password, it's going to be a lengthy process because I'm busy. And then resetting people's passwords is not my priority. Number two, there will be a thing where you can set your email address when you create your new account. Please do that. I'm not going to email anyone from the House of Lunduke BBS. It doesn't expose that information to anybody else. The one and only thing that is used for is to reset your password. So if you do lose your password and was like, oh, Lunduke, I'm so sorry, I did a bad job, but I'm this guy with this email address, and this is my user account, could you reset my password? And you email me from that user account, from that email address, I can reset your password. Otherwise, I don't have a way to verify that you are you, and so I can't reset your password. So set that email address and make sure it's one you actually have if you want me to be able to reset the password. If you don't care and are like, you know what? I don't need you to ever reset my password, Lunduke. I can put it on a sticky note and stick it on my monitor just like my mama told me how to. Fine. Put I don't care in the email address field, because I don't care if you had one or not, but I'm not going to reset your password if there's not an email address in there because I can't verify it's you. So anyway, there you go. That's that. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to the Lunduke Journal and is part of this amazing nerdy community that makes all this possible. And thank you for indulging me into this 1990s DOS BBS gaming nerdiness. I hope you have a ton of fun over there. If you go over there right now, I literally have reset all the games from scratch minutes ago. So if you log in quickly, you'll be among the first people playing TradeWars and Legend of the Red Dragon and whatnot. So get in there quick if you want a head start on everyone. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the whole gosh darn nerdy inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.